Hello everyone, welcome to the Muslims for Peace podcast. Today I have with me Syed Meesam Razvi. Syed Meesam Razvi is the 2024 Muslims for Peace Leadership Award recipient. He is the founder and the CEO of Tooli Logistics and Razvi Homes. He has a background in logistics and real estate. He balances his business roles with a strong commitment to social justice and advocacy. Syed Meesam has represented an NGO at the United Nations. He has organized an international thought leadership conference and worked on community initiatives like the Nassau County Human Rights Commission and the NYPD Advisory Council. Syed Meesam's leadership and business skills drive meaningful change in social justice. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Syed.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me, sister.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is your first Muslims for Peace podcast, so welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations on receiving the 2024 Muslims for Peace Leadership Award, mashallah. Can you briefly share your background with us, including your education and your career in logistics and real estate?
Thank you. First of all, I'm honored and humbled to have been recognized with this award. My background and my story is one of, from rags to riches. I for quite some time since after immigrating to the United States, I, worked from job to job. I've almost all of my life, even during my college life, I'd always wanted to start a business and work for myself. Just never had the opportunity or perhaps the courage, because being an entrepreneur is a very lonely place to be. For a lot of people, entrepreneurship is very glamorous, and everyone wants to be one. But it's just when you get there is when you realize that it's a very lonely place. So I didn't quite have the courage. I completed my undergraduate first in business from the State University of New York at Stony Brook, and then started working for the Al Khoy Foundation as their representative to the United Nations. So Al Khoy Foundation, for those of the viewers who don't know, is one of the only Shia Muslim organizations in the world that has a general consultative status with the United Nations. So I had the privilege and an honor and the opportunity to work there and work on speaking for those who couldn't be heard, outside of the borders of the United States, in much of the rest of the world, the downtrodden, in other words, who didn't have the voice. And that really sort of propelled me into that direction, and I went on to do my master's from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. And all the while, on the side, I always had a side thing running, a business that I wanted to kind of, I was, for a time, I had a company with a whole bunch of servers. I used to run a web hosting company. And then GoDaddy came about, and I went out of business. And then I started another one, more or less like roughly about 10 businesses, until the last one that took off about 5 or 6 years ago. And my fortunes turned. I don't believe that has much to do with me or my abilities. I feel that there are a lot of much more smarter people that are out there that probably deserve this more than I do. But I think it was the blessing of the work that I had been doing all throughout my life for almost 18 or 20 years, the community service and the work that I had been doing, because of which I was able to succeed, into this venture. So that's, a very rough, sort of brief background of, where I come from, my educational background and my business.
MashaAllah, that's wonderful. I commend you for the fact that you took the leap of faith. Yes. And you started all of these different business adventures that you had. Some of them that you mentioned were successful, mashallah, and some of them that were not, but it's still you had that momentum to keep on going. We're going to talk more about your community service as well, but as a founder and the CEO of Tooli Logistics and Razvi Homes, can you walk us through your entrepreneurial journey and what drives your passion for leadership and innovation?
So, like I said, my life story is full of businesses that failed, but from every failure there was a lesson, to be learned, and that's how I'm that kind of I'm like a born optimist, like that frog. So there is this story of a frog that falls into a cup of milk, right? And if it gives up, it would drown. But I'm the kind who would keep trying until that milk turns into cream, and I'm able to jump out of it. So glass is always empty or full. That it's a cliche, but I'm a believer in it. I always had one business enterprise or another running on the side until about 5 or 6 years ago. I decided to quit my job, and I said, it's either make or break. I'm going to go full in, and I started this logistics company to do last mile deliveries. And we started off with about 4 or 5 drivers who would go out and deliver. Me together with my wife, we would go out in our. I remember we used to have a red color Nissan Sentra, 1990s model, a very old one. And the very first day that we launched our business, we had deliveries to make, and the drivers brought back a whole bunch of packages. So we threw them in the back of our van, and we went out and made those deliveries. And that night, I felt the rest of my life was going to be like that. And that was during the month of Ramadan. We were fasting, hadn't broken our fast. It was 11 o'clock at night. And we were doing this. So that day and this day now today, I have roughly about 200 employees. I run a very, very successful, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, a logistics business, which then eventually, led to me then starting another business enterprise called Razvi Homes, where I build new homes, and on the more luxury high end. That enterprise has been running for about 3 years on, and alhamdulillah, that business also has been capitalized. So
wonderful. So a lot of people find it difficult to juggle and balance between home life and work life and mashallah community service as well. How do you balance all of your responsibilities as a business leader with your commitment to your advocacy work and your community service work that you do?
I see a lot of people talk about work-life balance, and they talk about juggling, one business with another. I don't see that as one or the other. I feel that it's more like a circle, and they're all connected with each other. Because, if you're not happy with your work life, you're not going to be happy at home. And if you're not happy at home, you're not going to be, energized and be able to work as well as you could in your work life. So I think they're part and parcel, hand in glove, that go with each other. And a work-life balance is more like a work-life sort of circle. So if you're able to cultivate a good life with your family that you're comfortable with, that's going to feed into and reflect into how you work. If you're not happy with what's going on at home, you're going to stay occupied. I give a lot of credit to my family from where I am. First of all, my parents, my wife. Actually, the name of my company, Tooli Logistics, is named after her. So Tooli is her nickname.
And what does Tooli mean?
So it's just a nickname. Her name is Batul.
Okay.
And
Batul, okay.
her name is Batul, but Tooli is just a nickname that her parents always called her.
Okay.
So I kind of went along with that. They say behind every successful man there is a woman.
Yeah. And behind a successful man, there's a strong woman.
Absolutely.
Well, so mashallah, I'm sure your wife has those characteristics as well.
She does.
Very good. You work in human rights and interfaith advocacy is truly commendable. Can you tell us more about your experience representing an NGO at the United Nations?
So yes, like I said, I worked for almost 18 years and represented the Hoi Foundation at the United Nations. And much of my work had to do, a lot of that work was self-directed, and so I really kind of craved and loved it, is because, instead of being, when you're working in a bigger, larger organization, often at times you kind of get stuck in the bureaucracy and being told to toe a certain line. But I had the freedom here. I was lucky that I had the freedom to kind of decide the domain of my work and work independently. So I focused my energy towards, causes that had to do that allowed me to give voice to people who otherwise would not have a voice on an international level. So when I kind of started, that was in the throes of the Iraqi invasion, the fall of Saddam Hussein, and there was a lot going on in that part of the world, in the Middle East. So we kind of, together with the Hui Foundation, we started working at engaging international stakeholders, diplomats and whatnot, to bring to attention the plight of the people in Iraq, in Pakistan, and Lebanon, and other places. And I derived a lot of, lot of satisfaction from doing that work, because I always somehow, even now, although I have succeeded, in my in the businesses that I run, I kind of feel that these businesses are not the end, but rather a means to an end, because they empower me to continue to do what I love to do, which is advocacy and human rights work, and work for social justice causes. So that's the way I see it, and I think that's the key to really, be happy and be able to merge all of these different domains together. So my social work life integrates very well with my business, because my business allows me to kind of, take my time out and focus on these.
Wonderful. Brother Syed, talk to us a little bit about how you were involved in the Nassau County and the NYPD Advisory Council.
Right.
I know you said your home base is in Long Island.
Yes, it is.
So it's about a 2-hour drive to get here.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So like I said, that was, social work and social justice was always my mainstay. I had always worked on issues like this. And during the course of my work, and while working with stakeholders, I was appointed by the Nassau County Executive on the Human Rights Council there. So I kind of was able to zoom out of the from the international sort of lens, and then focus a little bit on local issues as well. At the same time, there was this ongoing controversy, I remember at that time, about surveillance by NYPD, and there was a great deal of mistrust. There was a lawsuit going on behalf of the Muslim community for surveilling, so there was a lot of mistrust between, and I felt that there was an opportunity for us to because the police department, after all, does, their mission is to serve and protect, right? And if they have done something wrong, there is an opportunity that exists to kind of re-engage them and kind of set the process right. So I kind of took that separate, different approach from the approach that the litigants were taking, and I, got very close to the leadership there at the NYPD, and was instrumental in helping set up a Muslim Advisory Council. That was a representative body of various different, Muslim leaders from across New York City, who regularly used to engage and meet with the police commissioner and the mayor during those tough times. And I thought that allowed us to kind of create a space where it allowed the community, the Muslim community specifically, to engage with the NYPD, and also allowed the NYPD to be able to truly listen and hear what the community has to say. So I think that was that contributed a great deal to cultivating the kind of trust that was required for the community to move forward from that, and alhamdulillah, now NYPD is it's still ends up becoming a subject of controversy, but I think it's far from where it was back when we kind of started doing all of this work.
Wonderful. So talking more about the community, the New York City community, I know that you were in close contact with the New York City Mayor's office, and that also, all of your advocacy work and your community work led to a very historic moment when the Azan was allowed to be broadcasted from loudspeakers in the streets, inshallah. Can you walk us through what were the steps that you had to go along, or any of the obstacles that you had to perhaps move past in order for that to happen for the community?
Right. So I think it would be unfair for me to say that I was the one, because it was a communal effort, and it took a long while, and in a continuous effort and an ongoing effort to do advocacy on behalf of the Muslim community and engaging the mayor's office and the city administration and so on and so forth, that eventually led to it. A lot of people worked for a long time and very hard on this issue. But I did have the opportunity to be able to announce it on behalf of my community, together with the mayor. And I did not realize really the impact of it only after the next day when I woke up and I was getting my videos sent back to me by people from all around the world, dubbed in different languages, and they were excited, New York City is one of the greatest cities in the world, right? So to have Azan being allowed on loudspeakers, on a public address system, was, quite a thing, and I think I'm grateful to all of the community members who worked on this cause, and also grateful for the city administration to have allowed that to happen.
Now, is that ongoing?
It is ongoing. Yes, it is ongoing. It is ongoing.
Now, is the Azan, announced or portrayed 5 times a day? Is it 3 times a day? How often?
So it depends. So there is permission.
Okay.
So if a mosque is holding a congregation, they're allowed to give adhan from their loudspeakers. Within a certain, there are certain regulations in terms of how loud it can be and so on and so forth.
And what part of New York is this happening in?
This is all of New York City, so all 5 boroughs of New York City.
All 5 boroughs. Wow,
yes,
that's
absolutely.
a huge accomplishment.
It is indeed.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So, Brother Syed, looking back on your journey so far, I mean, myself, I'm amazed, and I'm sure our viewers who are listening and watching themselves, they're also amazed about how much you have accomplished, from being a businessman to doing work for your community, to being an advocate, also having close connections to the NYPD and the New York City mayor as well. What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self or to your children about how your experience has shaped you into the person that you are? So the youth that are listening and watching this podcast, what advice would you give them?
Listen to yourself is what I'd say. As I was growing up, one of the reasons why I feel that I wasn't able to succeed early on in my life in starting a business and failed so many times is because I was not listening to myself, and I was too often swayed by friends and family, often well-meaning, but their advice would be stick to a job, 9 to 5, you're safe, and it's only the daring who end up becoming fallen. So if you don't try, then you're not going to fail. The ones who fail are the ones who actually try, right? So it's only when I realized that I had to be fearless and take my ambitions in my business life and in my career in advocacy and to kind of take it on in a fearless manner without being afraid, because the risk and success is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's all from Him. So why be afraid? So I think to those who are listening to me, I would say, if your heart is telling you to do something, go ahead and do it. Life is small. I'm already 40, in my mid-40s. I wish I had started much earlier. including getting married. Get married early.
So if your heart is telling you to do something, do
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
And never fear failure.
Absolutely. Because from failure you learn.
That's right. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Syed Meesam, for taking your time and joining us today and being part of this podcast. I know all of your experiences and your wise words of wisdom will be taken from all of our viewers and all of our listeners as well. And congratulations again for receiving the Muslims for Peace Leadership Award.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sister. Thank you for having me.